have ignition sequence start. The engines are on. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
The Common Senseless podcast starts now.
Hello and welcome to the Common Senseless podcast. I'm your host, Dustin Depperschmidt. Common Senseless is common sense in a world that has none. Happy New Year's, everybody. It is 2012, and what better way to start it off than our first interview with the one and only Craig Smith. Craig, welcome to the first ever interview on the Common Senseless podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here with me. Let's just jump right into it. Who is Craig Smith?
First of all, man, thanks for having me. I really appreciate being here. I love your show and everything that you're trying to do and are doing. Craig Smith is a believer in Jesus. I love God. I've been saved since I was about 13. I'm also a husband of a beautiful wife named Tasha. We have 3 children, and I'm a pursuing Christian hip-hop artist that resides out of Stillwater, Oklahoma.
All right, Craig. So who are some of your musical influences?
I think a lot of like musically that influences me is what's on the radio today as far as secular music goes. I don't listen to a lot of it, but I do hear it, if that makes sense, and I know what's out there, and that really pushes me to kind of pursue music in a different way, in a different light, because I know how music affects individuals. It affected me a lot when I was younger, so whatever's like anything like certain pop music, certain hip-hop music really influences me to kind of do the opposite.
I like it a lot. We've talked a little bit about your musical influence, but what about your personal influences? Who are those people that influence Craig Smith, the person?
I think the main people that influenced me would be my children. I have a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 9-year-old, and just knowing that when they grow up, they're going to be tempted, and in many ways, and music will be one of them. And I hope that they can make good choices when it comes to what they listen to, because I do believe that it affects you. It affects your attitude. It affects who you are. It affects so many ways of your life, and they have a huge influence on me, and just trying to do positive stuff, because I don't want anything that I have to do with to be negative towards them, or that they will see me doing anything negative at all.
That's awesome. So your kids being your main influence on your personal life. Explain to me a little bit on so the next generation of Christians. I know I've known you for quite a while now, and we've had a lot of conversations about music and just how there's really no common sense about the way that Christian music's perceived. Mm-hmm. But I want to talk a little bit about your testimony. Mm-hmm. You have an amazing testimony online, and I think when I read it, it was like, man, I've been there, and how many Christians are out there that can relate with your testimony. Tell me a little bit about your testimony.
Okay. I was, like I said earlier, I was saved at 13. And then about when I was 15 and 16, I really started to listen to hip-hop. It was very negative, very parental advisory, if you say, like it says on the CDs. But and it started to impact my life in many ways. I was doing what it told me to do, is say, premarital sex is okay. It said, drugs and alcohol is just fine. Do that. That's what makes you happy. And I did that for many years. And then I was 20 years old, and I was at a party one time, and I had certain things on me that weren't good, that I bought before the party, and I left the party, and I was empty. I was broken. I felt that this wasn't the lifestyle that I was supposed to lead, that God was wanted me to lead. So I got rid of the bag of the substance that I had. I got rid of that on the way to my car. And right when I got in my car, I just started like crying. And God was like, he was telling me like, Craig, this isn't you. You know, this isn't what you're supposed to be and who you're supposed to be. You're not living out and being who I created you to be. And he basically told me like this music is the reason. And so as I was driving home, you know, tears rolling down my eyes, I just threw my music out. You know, I had a lot of, this was back when CDs were cool, not, you know, the iPods or whatever, but I had a huge book of CDs, and I was like, all right, God, I'm going to do it. So I threw it out in the ditch, and I drove home, and I felt so good about it. I was like, man, that's awesome. Here's a new start, you know. But then, you know, I woke up. I was actually sober. I woke up, and I was like, man, you know, what did I just do? I threw away all my music. You know, I'm going to have to tell my friends because the music that they knew me by, you know, I was defined by the music, and you know, all the parties and stuff, I was the one playing the music and had to get the new music out, you know, for them to listen to and stuff. And so I couldn't do it. I went back actually and drove around and found it in the ditch and just kept on with that lifestyle until I finally, it was about a year and a half later that I finally let it go. I finally like threw it away and let God take over and kind of control my life from there.
That's awesome, and I think that when I heard that testimony for the first time, I related so much to it because I don't know how many times, and I think that for kids that grow up in the church world, it's so easy for us to want to have that secular music because I think that Satan has such a lie out there that says, you know, secular music is so much better than Christian music, right. And so you buy into that lie. And you start to really it's a sick almost how much you love that secular music. And I know for me personally, when I was a young teenager, and I don't know how many times I threw out my secular music, and I was just like, okay, God, I'm not going to listen to it anymore, only to go back to the next day and reburn all my CDs and put them back in my car. Yeah. So I think that's where when I heard your testimony for the first time, that's where I really related because it was like, you know, I think the Bible has a pretty good illustration of that where, you know, he says, you know, as a dog returns to its vomit, so, you know, that's how people will return to their sins. Wow. Yeah. That's a powerful illustration. Yeah. It really is when it's, you know, that a lot of that music that's out there really is nothing but vomit, word vomit. And we'll return to it so many times, even though it's against everything we believe in, and it's against everything that, you know, the Bible would talk about. It's all, I mean, most of, and especially in your genre of music, hip hop. I mean, it's a lot about sex and money, right? And you know, and those things are clearly not biblical principles.
Not at all.
Why is it do you think that kids these days have such a hard time not wanting to listen to Christian?
Good question. I just think that it gets a bad rap for whatever reason, and also there's darkness involved, and I think that the evil one, the prince of this earth, you know, controls that in a way, controls music, and so they look at it and think there's no way that there's anything better than this, but there is, and I think the Christian music has gotten a lot better since even we were in school now. And there's whatever genre you like, whether it's hip hop, whether it's rock, whether it's anything, pop music, there's better Christian music out there now than there ever has been. And I think there's for any kid that is you know, kind of searching and wanting to find something like we were. I think that there's a better outlet now. But as far as like why they're drawn to it, I mean, it's a tough question, but I believe that we can change that. I think that parents can change that. I put a lot of it on their shoulders as far as making sure that your kids know what that. Make sure that that you as a parent know what they're listening to, because I think you take the beat away, and then just take just the words. And if you, like, a lot of times I've heard people doing this, they actually print the lyrics out and then reread them, and you hear what these artists are saying, and it's unbelievable. It's so really shocking.
It's I know growing up, I heard probably every week in my my youth group or my church group that, you know, hey, music can influence you. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm stronger than that. Music's not going to influence me. And then, you know, when you finally break free from listening to that, and I actually owe that to you and some of our conversations we had a couple months ago. You were telling me, you know, about Christian music and how when you're not listening to secular music that it's easier to like just get in the Word and to pray. And I took that challenge, and I don't even know if you knew about that, but it was like once you remove all of that negative junk, really, from that vomit, that noise from your life, and you really find it so much easier to jump into your Word. It's easier to talk to people about God. It's easier to actually do what you are here on earth to do. And I don't know what it is either. I agree with you that I believe Satan definitely has a stronghold on the music industry. I think that he's really out there. I mean, you don't even have to listen to the music. If you know it's the Christian channel, you automatically don't like that music as much. Right. Because it's such a lie out there that says that there's more talent from a non-Christian artist. And it's really hard to break those people's minds, but once that they put, you know, is what I'm listening to good for me, and once they put that at the forefront of their mind, I believe it's easy for them to start. And another thing that, just while I'm thinking about it, another thing that I think that prevents a lot of people from listening to Christian music is guilt. Because if you're doing something and you're not living right, and you're listening to music that's talking about God, it can turn you off. It can be one of those things that's like, whoa, I don't want to listen to this while I'm sinning. Right. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that and especially with Christians, you know, because we have that moral compass inside, and when we're doing something we know is wrong and we hear Christian music, a lot of times that can be a gut check for us.
Absolutely.
Okay, so when I was in high school, I had a certain CD, and when I was about to roll into the high school parking lot, that CD was going to be in my car. Speakers turned up so loud that you could hear me coming 2 blocks away, and I was worried so much about my, you know, perception and like looking cool. And it wasn't, you know, I wasn't blasting Christian music, you know. I was blasting secular music because I thought it would make me look cool. And so that made me think, you know, what if you could go back and talk to your younger self, what would you say?
Man, it's a great question. I would just tell myself to be myself, be who God created me to be. You know, I really wish I could go back and be like, you know, and talk to myself and be like, this is what I see now, this is how I see you're acting. Because I didn't listen to my parents when they said certain things, because I thought I knew it all. But definitely tell me to just be myself, be who God created me to be, because there's a reason that he did. But instead, I was just like you, I was so worried about what other people thought. And I was not going to be that Christian guy that everybody looked at like, well, you know, he's just a church boy. He just, you know, is this certain way. Like, I wanted to be cool. I wanted to fit in. And it's so sad that we as a society and we as individuals, young individuals, live like that, because it's a trap, and it's a pretty scary place to be. You can fall into a lot of temptation that way, and I did.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I would have told myself the exact same thing, you know, just be who you are in God and quit worrying about what everyone else thinks, you know. I think it's another one of those things where it's like Satan's got such a stronghold on how do you look. You got to have the certain music. You've got to have the certain car. You've got to have the certain hairstyle. You've got to have all these certain things, and you're so focused on those things that you forget to put your sights on God and what you're supposed to be doing. Craig, thanks so much for coming on and helping me cut through the static noise.
No problem. It's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed it. You can check out my music on iTunes. Just type in Craig Smith. It should be there. I've got an album called Let Your Light Shine. New single Jesus Swag, which you heard in the beginning. Also, check out my website. It's lovinloud.com. LUVIN loud.com.
All right, and thank you so much for joining us. Be here next week as we talk about cartoons and candy. Take them from your babies.